To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Hi everyone, we're at Disneyland Resort.
This is amazing.
I knew I wanted to do a video on the next topic for the longest time, and when I was researching this video at first I thought I was just going to put together a video about an urban myth that has long been debunked, but investigating this topic took me down twists and turns that I did not expect to go down. I am really excited about this topic because it combines some of my favourite topics, obviously conspiracy theories, but we're also going to be talking about some of my other interests such as science and technology and philosophy and ethics. We live in a world of technological innovation, and for the longest time I've been thinking about doing a series along the lines of like, has science gone too far? And doing a strong focus on the ethics about new technology. So if you are interested in more of these types of videos, please do let me know. It would mean a lot, and I'd be really intrigued to see if it's just me who finds this sort of stuff interesting. Heard of a man called Walt Disney. If you haven't heard about him, he was actually, you know what, I'm not even going to bore you with an introduction about the man. He was one of the most influential people to ever walk the planet, and let's face it, if you've got the internet connection to be watching this video, you've definitely heard about Walt Disney. Long story short, there's been a conspiracy theory surrounding his death for over 50 years, and this is widely considered to be a debunked theory. However, you know, here on the conspiracy series, we always like to take things a little bit deeper with our analysis. And in my opinion, I think we may have been a little bit too hasty in completely dismissing this theory. So much like Space Mountain, this video is going to be a crazy ride, so buckle up. Despite his public image of being a really wholesome person, Disney was a heavy smoker since World War I, and he was known to be addicted to smoking his pipe and smoking cigarettes without any filters, which is like honestly mental. In early November 1966, he was sadly diagnosed with lung cancer, and just a little over a month later, he died of a circulatory collapse caused by the cancer. Disney had said many times during his life that he hated funerals, and he didn't even want one for himself once he had passed on. So following along with his wishes, his family hosted a very private funeral with no associates or executives from the Disney studios being present. His body was cremated just 2 days after his funeral, and for the record, cremation back in the 1960s was seen in itself as being a pretty wacky and modern way of disposing of yourself. However, people have used the fact that Disney was cremated and had a very private funeral to add further fuels to the claims that he may have not have been cremated after all, but was in fact cryogenically frozen. Just a quick interruption from editing Izzy here. I am super sorry. It is going to be a little bit annoying, but for the life of me, I could not say the word cryonics in this video. Just wanted to do a quick disclaimer that I don't actually have an IQ of 45, but it was just one of those days. I, for the life of me, could not get this word out. So I am really sorry about it. Every time you hear me say something close, please know that I do actually mean this word on the screen. So I do slip up a few times in the video, but you guys have no idea how long it took me to film this video with all the failed attempts. Cryogenical, So what is cryogenic freezing?
Nope.
Essentially, it is a method of preserving a body by freezing it in liquid nitrogen vapor. The body is then stored for the foreseeable future until technology is advanced enough to bring these people back to life. The first documented case of cryonic preservation took place 1 month after Disney's death, when Dr. James Bedford underwent this process. There's a YouTube channel who I have used quite often as a resource called CNET, and they gave an insight into where the world of cryonic preservation actually is to this day. Obviously, I'll leave the full thing in the description below, but it's just crazy to know that this technology really is out there at the minute, and there's companies genuinely working on bringing frozen bodies back to life. So the next bit of the rumour is a little bit weird, and I'm not quite sure how this bit came about, but supposedly Disney's frozen body is being stored under the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, which first opened in March 1967. Okay, at first glance, the idea of having a dead body under the Pirates of the Caribbean ride seems a little bit far-fetched, right? That's That's what I thought too, until I learned that this has literally happened before. When Disney was developing his famous theme parks, he got together a group of animators and designers, and he called them his Imagineers. And he paid for this team out of his own pocket to go and research every amusement park in America to discover what worked well for them and come up with the most wacky ideas for his theme parks. I mean, talk about best job ever. Where do I sign up? When the Pirates of the Caribbean ride was being developed, Disney's Imagineers thought that the human skeleton props that they had didn't really match the standards and look realistic enough to be put on the ride. So they actually used real human remains as skeletons on the ride originally. Like, how creepy is that? So it is quite hard to pinpoint the exact origin of this urban myth. It seems to be one of those stories that's just been passed on from generation to generation. Like, for example, my dad, who, by the way, is who you guys have to thank for my love in conspiracy theories and all things paranormal. He remembers hearing this rumour as a kid. The theory does seem to stem back all the way from the point of Disney's death. In early 1967, a reporter for the tabloid called the National Spotlight claimed that he snuck into St. Joseph's Hospital, which is where Disney was being treated in his final days. The story goes that the reporter disguised himself, broke into a storage room, and saw the deceased Disney in a metal cylinder. Around the time of Disney's death, there had started to be a bit of a buzz around the idea of whether or not freezing people and bringing them back to life would be possible. In 1964, Robert Ettinger published a book called The Prospect of Immortality, and it's thought that with Disney passing away just 2 years later, the idea of him freezing his body wouldn't be implausible. Various biographies of Disney have also claimed that he really had the idea to have himself frozen. 20 years after Disney's death in 1986, author Leonard Mosley published the biography Disney's World, and he claimed that Disney was fascinated by cryonic preservation. However, many of the claims in Mosley's book have since been discredited, especially with the fact that Disney didn't have long between his initial diagnosis before he passed away. There was only a time period of 6 weeks, and people claim that this just would not have given him enough time to research this type of preservation. A second possible source of this rumour is Mark Elliott's 1993 biography, Walt Disney, Hollywood's Dark Prince. However, people really don't believe that this biography holds much truth in it, especially when it comes to claims that Disney had a desire to preserve his body. He doesn't seem to cite any sources in this book, so people think he has just plucked this idea out of thin air. Furthermore, Disney's own family really don't believe this rumour. In 1972, Disney's daughter Diane stated in her autobiography that she was very sceptical about the idea that her father had even heard of cryonic preservation, yet alone that he had ever expressed any desire to have himself frozen. But this doesn't stop the rumour that Disney, the innovator that we all know him to be, signed up for the idea to have his body preserved. And this rumour mill keeps churning, with fake news articles continuously being shared to this day. In September 2015, a satirical newspaper and comedy website called Daily News latched onto this theory. They claim that to mark the 55th anniversary of his passing, he's going to be brought back to life, and that the event was going to be live streamed, and that Daily News had even made an agreement with the Disney family that they would be the first to interview Disney upon his full recovery. Obviously, this was just a hoax, it was a joke article, and there was certainly no event planned by the Disney estate to bring Disney back to life and interview him. The rumour started to circulate again when in 2023 a screenshot of this news article was shared to Facebook, and need I say any more? The post accumulated more than 92,000 likes in just a week. However, conveniently, the disclaimer that this was originally from a satire website was left out of the reposted story. This is an example of what people in media call stolen satire, where a post that is originally shared as a joke is then reshared as a legitimate source or a news article, and then as a result the second generation of readers are then misled into believing that this is a legitimate story. It's funny to me to see how this news story is continuously circulating our pop culture and even our mainstream news. Even the likes of the BBC covered this story. There's also a rumour going around that it wasn't Disney's full body that was frozen, it was just his head, and in 2018 they even made a comedy film about this story. It's called The Further Adventures of Walt Disney's Head. It's about a low-level park employee called Peter who accidentally stumbles across Disney's frozen remains, who's then convinced by the late Disney to kidnap him for a day out in the Magic Kingdom. I'll be honest, I've not seen the film myself. I mean, even I don't have time for that, but do let me know if you've ever seen this film before. Is it any good? Is it worth a watch? It's not unheard of that publicists who manage the squeaky clean image of huge celebrities or huge brands often create fake news stories to take away from huge scandals. For example, a celebrity who's recently been accused of using this little trick is Taylor Swift. People believe that her new relationship with Travis Kelce is just a PR stunt. Previously, when you used to Google Taylor Swift jets, all that would come up is the overuse of Taylor Swift's private jets and how much harm this is causing the environment. However, now when you Google Taylor Swift jets, all that comes up is Taylor Swift in the audience of a football game as her boyfriend played the Jets. Am I right there? Or is he in the Jets? I don't know. Something to do with football. A team's called the Jets, and when you Google it, she's in the audience watching this football game. I don't know. Is this just a legitimate relationship that happens to have helped her image? Or is it a clever SEO trick? What do you think? And I am going to do a cheeky plug here. I have recently done a full Taylor Swift conspiracy theory video, so if you want to hear more about that, do check out my last post. And if you want any more, honestly, trust me, your gal's got more, so let me know if you ever want to see any more. Anyway, believers of the Disney Frozen conspiracy theory believe that the Disney enterprise was using a very similar trick to wipe the idea that Disney was frozen from the internet entirely. In 2013, Disney released its modern classic Frozen, and to say that this film was a huge success would be an understatement. It's a very loose adaptation of Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale The Snow Queen, which has been an inspiration of many films and characters, but no one quite did it like Disney. Now when you Google Disney and Frozen, all that comes up is content to do with Let It Go or Elsa, and people think that this is no coincidence. Just to play along here for a hot minute, I don't think it's too far-fetched to imagine that a brand like Disney, who are obviously so concerned about their reputation, might pull a little stunt like this. Let's just look at the facts for a minute. We are all aware that this rumour has been circulating for decades now, whether it's true or not. If I've heard it, if my dad's heard it, I find it really hard to imagine that those working at head office at Disney haven't heard this rumour. It doesn't seem ludicrous to me that Disney, a company with all the money and resources in the world to hire the best marketeers out there, wouldn't have come up with a way to put this rumour to bed once and for all. I mean, just even look at the name of the title of the movie Frozen compared to other films. To me, it seems like the title of the films always gives like a description of the character or is named after the character. You always have things like Cinderella, The Little Mermaid, The Lion King. Frozen just seems to fall out of sync with the rest, don't you think? So yeah, let me know if you think it's just a coincidence that Disney's Frozen, one of its biggest hits ever, also shares a name with one of the biggest conspiracy theories out there about Disney. So I've already said multiple times in this video, this theory is considered to be debunked. And I'm not saying there's necessarily any truth in this theory whatsoever, but I do think that when people are dismissing it or thinking it's far-fetched or too crazy to be true, that they are looking at this from an everyday man's perspective and not considering that this is about Walt Disney after all. Like if you told me that Bob next door had gone and got himself frozen to be brought back in the future, I'd be like, yeah, right. But it is said that to this day, 1,500 people have signed themselves up to be cryonically frozen. So what's to say that Disney wouldn't be one of those people? Despite the obvious, Disney was loaded. He would have absolutely been able to afford the technology to do this if he wanted to. But on top of that, our man Disney was basically the poster boy for all Sagittariuses. And if you know anything about astrology, you know that Sagittariuses, they are the adventurous ones. They are the dreamers. He had a curious nature and a passion for innovative technology, which always pushed his films and therefore the standards of films across Hollywood to new extremes with each of his releases. You have to remember that Disney was one of the first to use Technicolor and synchronized sounds in his feature-length animations, and you can see the success of this in his films such as Fantasia and Dumbo. Disney's determination for being a spearhead in the world of animation using his technology often cost him his reputation at times. When working on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, many in the film industry ridiculed Disney as the film was going to be the first animated feature made in full colour and sound, and the film was set to cost $1.5 million, which was going to be 3 times over its initial budget. Others in the film industry were sure that this business venture would bankrupt the Disney company, leading to industry insiders nicknaming it Disney's Folly. However, people weren't laughing for long because Disney's ambition truly paid off. It became the most successful sound film to be made to that date, and it made a gross profit of $6.5 million, which back in those days was just like unheard of. He was also one of the first to mix animation with live action films in films such as Mary Poppins. However, his passion for innovative technology wasn't just limited to his films, and he began to venture out into the theme park industry, and obviously we know this was a huge success. I mean, all around the globe now there is Disney Worlds and Disneylands. Disney was known to be a science fiction fan who looked forward to future advances in science and technology. You can see his interest in the future with his projects such as Epcot, which stands for the Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow, which was created to demonstrate how Americans would live and work and survive in the future. So maybe with his passion in sci-fi, it's not too far-fetched to imagine that he had the first grips on the future advanced technology of cryonics. People also speculate of whether or not he left Easter eggs to those around him about his return. It's said that after his diagnosis on the last film he produced, The Happiest Millionaire, he ordered cameras to roll as he addressed his department heads one last time, and he made laser beam eye contact with each of his colleagues as he told them what he expected of their performance in the future and that he hoped to see them soon. Did he mean this metaphorically, or did he think that he'd be back? So another reason why this conspiracy theory is widely considered to be debunked is because people believe that Disney just missed the boat on this technology. Bob Nelson, who was the president of California I don't know what's wrong with me, I literally can't say this word, Cryogenics Society. He gave an interview in 1972 to say that Disney wasn't frozen, but that he had wanted to be. He said, "The truth is Walt Disney missed out. He never specified it in writing, and when he died, the family didn't go for it. They had him cremated. I personally have seen his ashes. 2 weeks later, we froze the first man." And I'm happy to believe debunked rumours and sources. However, I just don't buy the fact that Walt Disney just missed out on the technology as a reason to debunk it. For me, there's just no way. Disney would have had all the money in the world to pay for this technology, and on top of that, he probably had access to more resources than the everyday person. If they were able to freeze the first person just 2 weeks after Disney's death, there's no way that the technology hadn't been in the works for longer than that. I mean, to make the technology to freeze a person successfully takes more than just 2 weeks. This thing would have been in the works for a very long time. I'm sure if Disney really wanted to have early access to this technology, he surely could have slipped someone a $5 or $2. I'm sure they weren't that far from the finish line just 2 weeks before. And even from a business point of view, I can't think of a single business owner in their right minds that would pass up on the chance of bringing Walt Disney back to life. Again, I'm happy to accept that this rumor is debunked, but not on these grounds. For me, my bullshit radar is going off. So please do let me know what you think. Is it possible that Disney just missed the boat by 2 weeks? Or maybe I just spend too much time on the internet and maybe I just need to go outside and touch some grass. Now, I want to talk about the sociological impacts of cryogenics for a minute. And again, I'm going to be using Disney as a reference here, but feel free to expand this to the argument as a whole. I want to talk about whether or not it would be ethical to bring him back to life. So in school, philosophy and ethics was always my favourite subject. And I don't know if you guys know this, but even in my day job, in my last job, I was working very closely with medtech and biotech founders. So the subject of bioethics, which is the study of ethical and sociological and legal implications of the advancement of medical technology, that's always been a huge personal interest of mine. Naturally, the idea of bringing people back to life from the dead has its pros and cons. I mean, I'm sure we all remember the Jurassic World franchise, but I'm keen to hear what side of the argument you land on. For example, people who are pro-cryogenic freezing believe that it is people's right to do so if they want to. I mean, for example, if you look at people who are terminally ill who might be suffering from a disease, disease, then wouldn't it be ethical to actually allow them to come back in the future, perhaps when there's a cure for their disease, to have the same opportunities as a non-terminally ill person to live the life to their fullest? And another argument is that human lifespans are naturally evolving anyway. If you look at cavemen, their typical lifespan was 20 to 30 years, and even 100 years ago, the average person in the US would be lucky to make 60. Advances in medicine and science are expanding our lifespan anyway. We already have life-saving technology such as defibrillators. What if cryonic preservation is just a more advanced and logical extension of medicine? And another argument is that if people just want to donate their remains to a scientific cause, and even if there's no guarantee that they'll come back, like, they've got nothing else to lose, so what's the harm? And coming from a philosophical utilitarianism standpoint, if we were able to maximise the happiness of people, not only patients who get to live longer, but for their loved ones who will perhaps grieve their loss, then why deny them of their happiness? Think about how much joy Disney himself brought to millions around the globe. If we could bring back Disney, just think about the happiness that would bring to generations to come. On the flip side, having this technology readily available would of course bring up many concerns. Would we necessarily always be bringing the right people back to life? Cryonic preservation can cost anywhere from £30,000 to £200,000. So naturally, this type of technology is only going to be available to a certain class of people. And if we only bring back the most influential people, wouldn't this limit, say, our political ideas and our culture? And also, there's no saying how long this technology is going to take to develop and be successful. It's definitely not going to be here tomorrow, so it might take, say, another 100 years. And bringing back people from 100 years ago is going to obviously cause loads of concerns, because different generations are going to be exposed and vaccinated and immune to certain diseases. They're also going to be carrying different diseases to future generations. Like, for example, say we brought back someone from 2020, we'd be risking the outbreak of coronavirus all over again. And also, would it be fair to bring a person back to life after so much time had passed? Society and cultures change so drastically from generation to generation. Things that used to be acceptable definitely aren't acceptable anymore. And going back to Disney as an example, a lot of people have actually criticised him for his beliefs. A lot of people think that he was a racist, for example. To be honest, I've not done in-depth enough research about that topic to be able to share my opinion on it, but yeah, the rumour is Disney was quite racist back in the day. Now, I'm not defending that sort of behaviour whatsoever, but also it could be argued that this was a product of the times. It might not have been Disney's personal mindset that led him to have those beliefs, but it could have just been the culture and people he surrounded himself with. So would it be fair to bring someone like Disney, who may have held, racist beliefs, into the future when society has worked so hard to get rid of those beliefs? And would it be fair to bring an individual into the world of the future if they're only going to be ridiculed for having beliefs that are now seen as being outdated? So it's safe to say that we know for a fact that as we speak, scientists are working on bringing people back from the dead. But we certainly seem a long way from it, and we have no idea if it's even going to be possible in the future. More so, we still don't know if we freeze a person and then thaw them back to life, or just save their brain or their neurons, if this means that we are going to be bringing the same person back to life. I will leave an article in the description below which goes into the science of this a little bit more if you are interested. But essentially it says that even if we save a brain of a person, there's a lot more to it than a brain that makes a person a person. It's all to do with the chemical reactions in the body of a whole. So even if we were successful in freezing a body, bringing it back to life, there's no saying that it's going to be the same person that joins us again in the future. They might not have the same personality, mannerisms, or even memory as the person before. Another reason why people think cryonic preservation companies might not be successful if they've started now in the future is because of the general lifespan of corporations as a whole. It's very unlikely that if a company starts today, they're still going to be in business by the time the technology is around to bring people back to life. Many cryonic businesses have already gone out of business since they first started. And since 2018, all bar one of the companies that started before 1973 have since gone out of business, which meant that the corpses just had to be defrosted and just thrown away. What a shame for all the people that were actually frozen with hopes of restoring them themselves in the future. But who knows, if you do believe in the conspiracy theory, there's no saying that the one that survived might have been the one that stored Disney's body. In conclusion, there is little evidence that we are ever going to have the technology to bring people back to life, and there's even less evidence to say that Disney froze himself and will be joining us again in the future. Scientists such as Simon Dine, in his paper Cryonics, Science or Religion, stated that cryonics is based upon a naive faith rather than upon science. So like I said, there's no saying that we ever are going to have this technology in the future, but people are hopeful that we will. All I know is that if Disney really does come back to life, I will literally shit a brick. So there you are. I hope you have enjoyed this video, this little deep dive. As I said at the start of the video, this is a sort of new direction for me. So if you are interested in more videos about the future of technology and the ethics behind it, do let me know in the comments below, or leave this video a huge thumbs up. That way I know to do more in the future. Also, do let me know what you thought about Disney potentially coming back to life in the comments below. I'm really intrigued to know if you've heard this rumor before, what your thoughts are on it, and what you think about the ethics about freezing people and bringing them back to life. So yeah, thanks so much for watching if you made it to this point of the video, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye.